this locally for each of us on our computers. Okay.
Really? How can
Oh,
it access my computer? I've given it permission now?
I don't know. Maybe it's just mine then. We'll see. Anyway, so let's see. It should be on Twitter now.
All right, well,
Take a look.
I see it.
You do?
I
Perfect.
got you.
There we go. So we've got LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, just to start this little test, since it seems like Twitter Spaces is not working today. So I posted up a couple of latest reports about what's happening. And obviously, Twitter is a great source to see what is going on in Twitter today. Seems
Yeah, I
like,
just quote tweeted it. It's so funny. Like, just the fact that we were already talking about this. It goes to show you that as we learn more about like building our own platforms, it's interesting that you like learn these lessons. I never would have thought a year ago that we would have to be finding a different alternative like in any moment to Twitter, let alone like Twitter Spaces, right? Like you come to expect and take for granted that these platforms will just be here for you. And
I agree with
Twitter seems so solid. Twitter seems like Jack's been doing it forever. They're X number of years in. How could we have ever dreamt that Elon would buy it and start doing what he has every right to do?
it's true. I think it's crazy because a lot of people looked at Twitter Spaces as one of the most innovative, new things that Twitter was working on. So it seemed even crazier for that concept to kind of bleed through. It'd be like TikTok taking videos out and everyone going,
Yeah,
what?
audio is massive. Audio
Right?
is massive, and like voice is where everything is going. So the fact, and it's not to say that this won't be back later today. It's not to say that this is gone forever, but to me, it's a moment of reflection for us to say, like, if people are building audiences, it's not enough to only build that audience in isolation on any platform, number one. But two, to depend on these platforms to communicate. I'll never forget, I remember Mech being in one of the first Twitter spaces I'd ever heard Mech. And we spoke on the phone afterwards, and she was like, "Yeah, when I was on Clubhouse, I had 30 plus thousand followers, and what I realized is like I lost access to all of them. Like when Clubhouse wasn't a thing, I could no longer receive any sort of contact. I could not communicate them with the same way." And I remember like, oh shit. But as I've learned more of this idea of like audience building and platform building from rented audience, which is what we all have on one single platform, we're just renting the audience. We don't own them. You don't own anyone, but you know what I mean? To bringing it to like, how can you communicate with these folks, this community that you're building outside of these platforms? And then if you are looking to have an offer and bring value in different ways, that allows you to monetize that audience or just be able to deliver value that may have cost and may not have cost. So it's crazy to me that we're sitting here like doing this about Twitter. It's nuts.
I'm really glad we were
Can you?
testing this stuff over the last few weeks too, because like
I
when
was
you
gonna
said, what are you
say,
gonna do?
I think it's
I was like,
important.
easy. This is what we're gonna do. This is just as good, if not better. We can tag more people into this too. So, and it
Yeah,
pushes it right into Twitter, anyways. And we can record and pull audio out of all of this as well. So, I
yeah.
think that's the one thing. I love that these moments will shift the landscape. And I'm hoping we'll see some other products and software that has been kind of put to the wayside because Twitter was leading. And now that they're choosing to depart from this area or maybe pause or come back, we don't
I
really
mean,
know.
yeah, don't assume. We don't know. There's a lot of
Exactly.
theories why it went down.
Enough of a reason that you better have a plan. And it can't just be like, what do we do now?
Yeah.
Like you said, how many people had spaces schedules? How many people, revolve around this entire concept and then are going to
Well, there
actually.
was, and you can look it up. You can look it up. We all know if you've been in the space for a long enough time. What up, Diggs? Diggs, by the way. If you've been in the space as long enough, you know Nifty Morning Alpha, right? Nifty Alpha with Nick and Pio. Pio tweeted something out today and saying, we run a daily show we've scheduled it, we have paid sponsors against the show, and now we don't have access, like, to be able to actually execute on it. That's terrifying
Right.
for people that have big money on the line, and that also, in credit to them, they worked really fucking hard to build a platform and use like this platform as a way to do that. It just goes to show you we just can't we can't depend. You need to use external sources, whether it's StreamYard, whether it's I think you used Riverside at one point in time. There was another platform.
That's another one.
I feel lucky that you've been dicking around with this stuff
True. It's so totally true.
because
Even Twitch. After watching kind of like some of the Twitch streams that I've been really liking, I'm like, I don't know. This is exactly the same thing, just with more, visuals, more interaction. I think this is kind of
yeah.
like the next evolution. If you could be there, if this forces the hand for some people, I think that's good. Like I said, I think there's a lot of apps that are on the wings and a lot of people that have options to do stuff otherwise. So I'm excited to see maybe people will be doing more stuff in Discords and recording it and then posting that instead, or using these types of services to kind of like do what you're planning on doing, whether it's a Zoom call or a live stream, and you can record it, chop it up, and then live stream it into everybody so that it's not something that's random and you're not really sure what's going to be said.
Yeah, and we're obviously not naive enough to not acknowledge the fact that this is also a platform. These are all platforms, right? The difference being that Twitter is free in large part. I mean, up until recently for some, it's free for a reason, which is like then we are beholden to them and what they want to do. Paying for a service like this, the something like what happened this morning likely isn't going to happen in the same way without any notice. You like StreamYard could go bankrupt. They could stop being and existing as a company. But what I think we're saying and what I think we're realizing is like you can't be dependent on any one platform. Use whatever platforms are available to you. Of course, you need to be able to communicate to different audience in different places, but while you're doing it, make sure that you're providing yourself with mechanisms to get in contact with those folks aside from it in other ways. And two, while you're doing it, take advantage of these moments of recording. Because one thing that I was also thinking about this morning is we've often talked about pulling audio from our existing Twitter spaces and turning that into content, which is great. But what happens, right? Like we have no access to those previous recordings right now.
Yeah,
I think if we did a data pull request, we might be able to get them, but I don't know. So all this like, oh yeah, we'll get there. You and I in business, you're just moving quickly. We may not ever have access to those again. And were some great pieces of content that now it's not ours anymore.
That's why we practice what we preach, and we tell people to own that content, download it. So all the work that we do all the time, I tell you, as soon as the space is done, tell me, and we download that immediately so that we don't have to worry about that as well. But that's a practice, right? And having these processes in place and also setting up your processes differently like this, where you can pop something up and own more of the content up front and then repurpose and reuse it in different ways is way more of where the future is going. And I think it'll be cool to see.
I think that's like speak to that though, because that's overwhelming, right? And like not everyone is as technically advanced as you are. And like I would say that you're great at just figuring it out and playing around. So there's some value to exploring that too, because I think if I were on the receiving end of this and I didn't have a Pat on my team, I'd say, well, that's great, but what the fuck do I do? I don't know what to do. I don't know the first step to take. And this is obviously a content opportunity for us as we move forward, I think, just having this discussion and talking through what some of those questions might be. But like, what have you been doing to get us to this point? And then what would you recommend somebody do if they felt like doing the same thing today, or if they felt like kind of taking advantage of the moment?
Yeah. What's interesting I found is every software, every website that provides some sort of a similar service to StreamYard it seems like everybody's going to video first, and everyone's going to a studio type model where you can kind of add streams, add elements. Some allow you to do just the one format, record it, and that's it. Riverside's interesting. It saves each one of these tracks separately so that you can then repurpose them into, let's say, a TikTok video or different sized videos using some of that content like we played with. But it's still clunky and limited on that stuff. But the reality is they're all roughly the same at this point. They're all roughly around $50 a month. Some of the more easier ones to use, I'd say like StreamYard would be my recommendation. It seems to be like the easiest to actually connect to.
How much is that a month?
About $50 a month.
Okay.
And that
I mean, it's not cheap by any means. So you need to be able to make an ROI on, we can easily make that ROI based on the repurposing of content. And I think that's like, to me, the way that I would justify that business expense. It's not small, like it's, especially for a small business, to add $50 a month when you're used to free platform. But if you can make the argument that that one piece of content times however many days that you do it, to be able to repurpose this and own your stuff, like that's a pretty easy justification for those costs. And then obviously if you have offers to monetize to your audience, or monetize your audience through offers, then that becomes an easier business case.
Yeah, and it seems just like
it's not cheap.
No, but it's also not expensive in the sense that everyone would always ask me, hey, is Twitter Spaces the way to go? And I would say no, it wouldn't be my first place to go. If you could, I would Twitch stream right from the top, or YouTube live stream just like this, capture the same content, have some video that can be edited down into other formats, and we can pull the audio from that. And then you got your podcast, you got all those channels set up. And then if anything, to be honest with you, I was thinking taking that audio and just playing it into Twitter Spaces with some interactivity, but not, more than that. I like Twitter as a
so why would you use right an amplifier or an added distribution channel? So why would somebody use, you just mentioned YouTube Live, why would we be using StreamYard instead of YouTube Live then?
The only value really is like a StreamYard allows you to set up multiple streams at a time. So like right now I'm streaming live into LinkedIn under my profile. You can also live stream right, let's say the company profile under Intentional. Then you're also live streaming in YouTube under our company profile. We're Twitch streaming under our company profile. And I've added just my Twitter profile right now, but yours could be added. So as soon as we go live, all of these go live instantly.
Got it.
Then you can execute the comms where you're actually saying, okay, great, retweet these, get this person to retweet, post this, all that kind of stuff, quote tweet this, to actually get it out there and spread the messaging.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense to me. Elon is showing his obscene level of control and essentially saying, who cares what anyone thinks? I mean, that's just Elon. It's so true. It just seems to be Elon. And I don't know when you joined us, but yeah, we were talking about the fact that that's the reality of these platforms. We're beholden to an individual in this case, likely. That would be the same with Facebook. Mark makes all those calls that he wants to make. A lot of tech startup entrepreneurs, they're going to make those calls. And there's theory. I mean, you could probably pull it up, Pat. There's theory that this decision was made in haste, following a Twitter space. Was he on it last night? Where he was encountered, or I guess he got pushback from some journalists that he had banned that were sharing location. And this decision seemingly was made almost immediately after that. So some might say a person got called out, got upset, and made a call. That could be, that's a theory. We don't know.
All of it. If you look at also kind of, other billionaires and what they have to do for safety and security, again, I have no, soft spot for a billionaire who doesn't want to hire enough security. So
you don't?
Nope. And I know, to me, it just looks like such a contrived play too, to say someone did this and therefore I'm shutting this person down. every one of his like, I don't want to get too political, but he seems way too similar to Trump for me in the sense that he's says one thing, does the complete opposite, and continues to kind of go in that realm. So that's what scares me about this decision, and it should scare a lot of people, is your business is in the hands of someone who has this temporary, ability to turn on and off everything you do. And I think this moment
Well,
will make
a temporary ability. He has a very real and immediate ability permanently if he wanted to.
Yeah, exactly. And his reasonings and logics aren't the same as an average person looking for, I want to build a business, I want to build a brand, I want to build a community. Right? His intentions might be, hey, I'm leveraging this to get a better, contract with the US government for the satellites, and I'm going to hold this until XYZ happens. We don't know all the details, right? And that part is also another worrisome thing, where it really means wherever you are funneling content and however you're starting your, content strategy, it shouldn't be based on platforms that you don't own the content at the end of the day. Instead, you should be distributing your content through those platforms rather than relying on them as your only source.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, because even like I like positioning anything is like a shouldn't. It's like for me, it's like it's an and, not an or, right? So these platforms obviously have incredible value. The value that we receive from them is largely unpaid by us. It's free. In a lot of cases, people that have Twitter Blue are yelling at me right now, but it's been free for a long ass time. So the communities that we've built have largely been free for us to build. And so it's an and. It's a use it for what it is,
not
use it when it's available as a distribution tool.
And I don't think it's free. I think on the back end API data and all the other things that
it's
this
not
is like
free. Yes,
exactly,
we're giving
right?
up a lot.
It's
It's free monetarily. It doesn't cost our bank account, but it's not, nothing is free.
Yeah, we are the product.
We've
right?
seen that in the data we've all given to everyone.
Exactly.
Take my life. Here.
So,
Give a free platform here. You can have access to my bank accounts, whatever you want. You want any piece of data on me? You want my medical records? Sure. Take my medical records.
that saves me $50 a month. I'm down, right?
Right?
I think these moments
we
are
love
big.
conveniences and we love free.
Yeah, exactly. And these are the moments where you really start to realize having a good process, having a good plan, all of these things when executing would mean like this. We're streaming right into Twitter. So in fact, we have more interactivity because of a chat, and being in Twitter and responding as well, we can do. I think that's like basically a small bump in the road, especially if you can pull this, rip out audio, and do the exact same stuff we were planning on doing anyway, Twitter Spaces.
And I also don't want to position this as though like we have it all figured out, because we're talking about this in a very real context of, I think before we even started recording, we were talking about the fact that like you and I have been building community on Twitter for 18 months to 2 years. And only recently did I start a newsletter to be able to capture people's information to communicate with them in different ways. So this is like, these are the lessons that we're learning. They're very real lessons. Like, we did not do the right thing. We should have been collecting email addresses all along. There's ways to secure access to folks through NFT drops and collections with wallet addresses. That's not something we've done either. So just to put that out there, like we haven't figured it out. We're learning these lessons real time too. We just happen to be in a position where we're exploring this as of the last few weeks, and this is one of the tools that you played with and said, fuck it,
exactly.
Why don't we give it a try
and
see what
happens? Barely
happens.
dry. The paint is barely dry.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Yeah.
That's
exactly.
I would say the primer is like maybe on, but not quite yet.
Yeah, exactly. But it's true. And it's those types of systems, setting them up in place and getting them ready, that allow you to kind of do it right. But you're right. If we could go back 2 years and do this from day one of those 2 years, it'd be a very different story. Thank goodness it's not like the whole platform, but it really does realign kind of what your focus should be, or at least how to manage from the top down what you're doing with your content. Do you own it? And then how are you making sure that your audience has the ability to find you and access you in all of these platforms? That's why the StreamYard thing intrigues me. I'm literally on 4 platforms right now, or we are, sorry, right now. And to me, that's powerful. We don't have to do
Not
4 times
just
the work.
you all the time, Pat. It's we, not I anymore. Okay.
There's
No,
I.
it's true. I know, right? It's true, and it's fuck. That's way more convenient. Like, I would rather that. We talk about it all the time. The consistent, like the two biggest drivers of growth in community or audience, depending on which way you look at it, are consistency of content and quantity of content. We know quality is up there, but it's not the first two. Clarity of message is also up there, but it's not the first two. I've received no greater ROI on the work that I've done than consistency and quantity. And in our world, consistency means picking a platform. Ideally, you would have every single platform available to you, but like, I also want to acknowledge the fact that's overwhelming for people. It's been overwhelming for me. Don't tell me to hop on every single platform right away, because I'm not going to do it.
But it's rejigging your perspective of saying, like, listen, what we're doing now is doing that already. So it's not saying you have to jump on and figure it all out, but it is, in many ways, jump on and at least try it and see how it works for you and see what the result is. It's kind of like you said, we're so routine driven that we have a hard time saying, okay, I'm going to park in a different parking lot this today when I go to the office.
Oh yeah, like, with my Twitter, like, I found a formula that worked. It works for me. My community likes it, and moving outside of that formula has been really hard, because I'm like, no, but this works, but it doesn't align with my overall objectives anymore. It worked for when I didn't know what I was doing in terms of like, why was I building a community, for what purpose, and who did I want to be in that community. That's a very different thing. So it worked well for that because it got me in a pattern of creating consistent content and engaging with folks to understand what did and did not have value. Now I'm at the point where I've got a clear understanding. We know what we're trying to achieve. We know the value we want to deliver our community. And so doing the same thing all the time is just not enough anymore. So we have to expand, and we have to go to different ways. But the very real side of me that has had a hard time getting interested in social at all is like, don't do that. You're going to start from zero again. You're going to start fresh. Like, you work so hard. So it is a mind shift. It's a mindset shift.
Because like what we're doing now, I just used as the example, right? Nothing's changed with your audience and your numbers. It's just how they're receiving that information on the get-go. But if it's still through Twitter, they're still in the app and they're watching us right now and listening to us right now.
Yes, but you're underestimating the point. For me, what got me on Twitter and got me excited about Twitter was two things: audio first, not video, and short snippets of information, 280 characters. It helped me become a better writer, and it helped me be succinct in my thoughts, versus Instagram is video first, TikTok is video first, many other platforms are video first. A lot of men that I've talked to particularly are like, who the fucking cares? Just get on camera. It doesn't matter. You don't need this. You don't need that. It's just a very different reality for me. I won't speak on behalf of all people. Just for me, I don't want to get on camera and, put on a hat and worry about my hair and like, I don't have makeup on and blah, blah, blah. Like, there's a real concern for that kind of thing. So overcoming those fears, which to me are very real, it's a challenge. It's hard.
Definitely. I'm just showing this example of, the Swiss Borg. I have no idea who these folks are, but them jumping right into their, YouTube live stream format.
Yeah. Which I'm sure is what, and maybe they've tweeted about it. Check out Pio. I'm sure it's what Nick and Pio probably ended up doing. And the point then holds that, like, thank goodness they have other channels. I think they even started on YouTube, if I'm not mistaken. But they have other channels, so they're doing the exact right thing. They've done the exact right thing, which is build community on more than one platform.
Hey, and I was leaning on video content really getting a bigger push in probably like 6 or 9 months, as people kind of really enjoyed the power of audio more and more, realized that there's even a bigger advantage in video. but I think this may, depending on how long this lasts, right, may spark quite a few people to change the hierarchy of their content structure. And instead of starting it at what was the most convenient, which was Twitter Spaces, I think a lot will move to the right choice, which is live stream first, then do everything else that you were planning on doing with that, including ripping the audio out and using that to create your podcast streams, and then also chop it up into audiograms. And then if you're really talented or have some video editors, taking these separate streams, so they could take me talking right now into a TikTok video, like we had some of those examples with me talking above and below some image and text that people are used to as well.
That's something to speak to. So that is like, I hear content editor and I'm like, oh, what? Like, I don't know. One, I know I don't know how to do that myself. And two, I know what I've heard about content editors is they're very expensive. Like, how would you direct people if this is something that people need to do more of, and they're able to open up these conversations and have these discussions, turning that into content that then needs to be edited? Like, what would be the lowest hanging fruit for people to be able to engage in that?
Like I said, I'd probably start with something like StreamYard, or Riverside is great if you have no editor. So if you have no editors or access to editors right now, Riverside will probably be your best bet to get started, because it kind of gives you a soft
What's the entry. URL on that?
Ooh, I'm going to have to check. I would say the wrong one.
Just so people know, because Riverside seems to be your news.
Riverside.fm.
Okay, riverside.fm. Yep. So that's the one, because it's going to piecemeal it out for folks.
Yes. So it records each of us individually, and then keeps those tracks separate, and then the whole thing as well. So that when you go back and say, hey, let's do a TikTok video or a 1-minute video in this format, it'll just take that picture, put something, let's say our screen share below that, and allow you to put something together right away and instantly generate something and post it. It may not look like the coolest looking kind of, let's say, TikTok video, but yeah, now you're actually getting content for your TikTok platform very easily based
where
on
you weren't before
doing. And so that repurposing happens in a proper way. And I know if they have these fundamentals in place, I know what they're going to continue to develop will make it look very slick. I think within the next 3 to 6 months, there'll be some really cool features and add-ons, including the transcription and some 2D graphics and animations.
Yeah, and I think the point about it being slick is something so many people go to, and I know I often go there. It's that like need for, we consume content from content creators that have often teams that have been doing this for a long time. So it is like slick and it's nice. That to me is like a friction point for a lot of people to engage in. You're acting like an advertisement for Riverside right now. This is funny. For people
to, because of the entrance question that you asked.
Friction to engage. No. And I love it. I think it's funny. I'm just making fun of you. It becomes a point of friction. But what I've also started to realize is that, like, if you start your content creation journey with the number one goal of providing value to your audience, then it actually doesn't have to be super pretty. Like some of the accounts that I receive information, say for my ADHD on TikTok, their videos are fucking ugly, but it's a person behind the camera with a transcript over top of it, and that's it, and that's what their entire page looks like. But I follow them not because of how pretty it is, which is very like Instagram forward of us, but because the content that they're offering, the insights they're giving, the advice is valuable to me as an individual. So I hope to see more of a shift towards that. That for me reduces some fear that I have about, like, it needs to look perfect and it needs to be pretty and it needs to have like all the latest, I don't know, whatever the fuck people are doing on TikTok. It doesn't have to be that, I don't think, at least initially, as long as you're delivering good, valuable content to your community.
Totally agree. And especially when we've done some of our meetings and recorded the Zooms themselves. The most recent one the other day, when I went through it and chopped out all the parts that, let's say, aren't shareable, aren't really valuable, and was left with just these.
Okay, when I swear a lot. You can just say it. It's fine.
Exactly. When trucker comes,
When you're
trucker.
cussing up a storm and
So that made me realize how many sound bites were in that, let's say, 40-minute meeting that we had. There was a good 12, maybe 14. Right. So that I'm going to send to our editor, who will already have sections from there that he can calculate out, or we'll review one more time to kind of pull out the best sections and provide that, so we can create some small
and our editor is essentially an Upwork editor, right? It's not like somebody who's charging $500 an hour. It's somebody that we're using one of these freelance type platforms to be able to engage with. That it's relatively quick and easy. There's a little bit of a learning curve if you've never used Upwork before, but it doesn't need to be, the highest quality of quality. Actually, I won't even say that, because that's not fair. We get a lot of great quality, like really great quality. It doesn't need to be the person that's pitching you $500 an hour, because there's a lot of people out there pitching $500 an hour for content editing and video editing. It doesn't have to be that.
And it's what I just said previously. It's that pre-work part. So if I were to give a 1 hour or 45-minute video to an editor, it would take at least an hour, maybe 2 hours for them to find some spots. And even then, they may not agree with, because you and I have done this experiment before where I went through audios and pulled out some parts, the Betty interview that you did recently, and the two that I pulled out.
I was like, dude, these are the parts I want.
Right? Exactly. And to me, I was like, these are great. I love
what
these.
Are the parts?
Right?
I know. And I'm like, no, that's not the point I'm trying to make here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, oh my God.
That prerogative is so
mirrored. I'm struggling to figure out which way.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's important. So if people plan their sessions out a little bit more, use something like a StreamYard or Riverside.fm, they'll end up with these bits of content that become very easy to translate into 1-minute TikToks or Instagram Reels, that kind of stuff, and then work their way to the next point, which is then you can find an editor, because you're actually creating a format that's easy for them to take to the next level, which is, okay, this Riverside TikTok looks good, but if I actually throw on these images at the bottom that look bigger and add some text, then it's easy for them to edit that down. So starting from a Riverside, chopping up to small pieces, then handing it off to an editor will really lower your costs, because all they are really doing is that final layer of making it pretty and nice and acceptable for, like you said, what people are used to on Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah, and I think like this is not what everyone wants to hear, because a lot of people just want to hear like the easy route, and I totally get it, because we're all just so busy. But I do think that every content creator should at least create a couple of the pieces of content that they are looking to secure from an Upwork editor. Just grit and grind through it so that you understand what that process looks like. You don't have to perfect the process, but I had a really amazing boss in my early stages of my career, and he was like, you should never be passing off work to your team that you yourself don't have the basic understanding of, because that's where the loss in communication, the loss in efficiency and productivity comes. If you can't explain it, then if you don't understand it, it's going to be hard to explain it to somebody else. Thank you.
And definitely you'll end up paying more because of that, always, right? That's like the given example.
Especially in the hourly game.
And what I would tell people, and this is something we practice with a lot of our initial clients, just do Zoom calls. Have somebody on there who's a host or an interviewer or somebody who can ask those questions to bring that out from you. So even a short 30-minute Zoom call with someone who knows what they're doing, asking you, tell me more about your business and how it helps people. Those little soundbite responses that you give so naturally will be the most perfect type of sound bites. And that will start putting your head in the headspace. Because like when you review the video from yesterday, I found so many amazing sound bites from all the different responses you had to either the problems I was bringing you, or the directionality of, let's say, a strategy we were working on during that call. And your responses all just like fantastic. I literally went through the video going, every part with me, just delete and keep all the Christina parts and look through those. And then you have
because I'm a genius.
Yeah.
You know this about me. It's just what I am. I'm a genius. So
we did it out before they shut down Twitter.
That's what you got. I can't believe we're like sitting here and even talking about this. I would have never, ever guessed
I can't wait.
But this would
And
be
especially,
a conversation we'd be having about Twitter.
yeah, I can't wait till it's like, how many more people can you add to a screen like this? Will it get too much? How are people going to do some branding? How are people going to do, more chat
That's true
information?
too, right? Because a Zoom call is like, this is different. This
Yeah.
is different than a Zoom call. This is like you and I talking. It's one way, and there's value in the one way, but that's limited. I love a two-way. I love a three-way, four-way conversation, to be able to like broaden perspectives and bring different perspectives. So like this is kind of limited because you and I mean, we're very different in the way that we look at things, but we're aligned in what we're trying to do.
I just checked. We can do up to 10 people on this live stream platform with StreamYard.
No
So we could add
way.
up 10 more people or 8 more people on this call. So I think when we do the next one, we should absolutely rotate and bring some people in for opinions or ideas or just talk. And I don't know. It
I
gives
would
me
love
the
that.
idea, test this in the same way we use Twitter Spaces. Have the top hosts, have some folks come up, have
And you can have
people.
visuals. I mean, it makes it more complicated for a host. I like being able to sit here with my coffee and just listen and participate versus like, doing a screen or whatever. You wouldn't have to do much. You could just do your graphic for the space on the screen. It doesn't have to be like,
And it's
something
just
all
one
that
of the
fancy or
individuals that
going through things.
Yeah, exactly. Similar to the way on Twitter Spaces, I would always advise people have someone else come up on the hosting stage and allow them to do audio, allow them to do the music coming in, allow them, to bring up listeners and change them into speakers.
Yes,
And that kind
you talked about this.
Yeah.
The executive producer in a box is the dream for all of us Twitter Space hosts. Like trying to do multiple things at once and then contribute to the conversation is really hard, and that's where a lot of choppy things happen, which happen a lot. But we're just learning. We're all just learning. We're all little baby content creators.
Well, timing's great because I'm setting up the podcast studio down here. I got 2 new desks shipped in. I just got the extension cables for the microphones here. So we got all our nice fancy little microphones. We're going to do the whole Joe Rogan style kind of, podcast face-to-face setup so that we can also capture some video on both ends that, again, for a lot of our clients.
This is for Health Alpha client or Dr. Lamb client?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, exactly. And so because I know how much video matters, but I also know how much our clients need a slow and steady pace to kind of get comfortable with those things. But I think the podcasting format that people are used to makes them very comfortable because you're looking at each other and chatting to one another, kind of like what we're doing now. And I think that natural stuff actually makes for fucking awesome video. Just like, I said, all the parts I pulled out of yesterday's video, I couldn't have forced you or produced it and scripted it so you would have done it as well as you did, right? So why do that? Not actually try to figure out how to naturally.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this. The casual conversation, you're always going to produce and string together sentences in a much more natural way than sitting down and saying, okay, what's my response to this? Like there's so much, especially when as many people on here are as skilled as they are in the work that they do, there's so much, I guess, just beauty in letting them talk and letting them like really just articulate it in that best way and forming content from there versus sitting down and saying, what are we going to write and worrying about every single word and all that kind of stuff. You lose the magic of it.
100%. And every time I've done it more and more and more, the more I've seen that and the more I realize the setup really does matter. That's why having a comfortable environment that people can come into or setting up your environment in a way that makes it just like we're chatting really makes the difference, right? I think, like I said many times, like we got to jump on and do this live stream and chat about this, keep the sandbox within this topic so we don't, ramble off into things that would not be on topic. And that's it. But just like any other good meeting, right? What's the agenda? And go through it. So I think that's
go Bayside. All right. Well, this feels like a natural end. So let's wrap it. I think let's take the learnings that we've got from this. I can't see how many people tuned in or what, or I don't know what that looks like, but I don't even think it matters. I think the point of being able to try this out and see what it's like, and then seeing the back end results, once you're able to pull it together, and I think there's huge value in that. So I'll keep playing it around.
And I also look at it, this will continue to live on all of these platforms. So we just created a 40-minute video that will live
Forever.
on YouTube,
Forever.
Twitter.
What movie is
LinkedIn.
that from? Can you tell me what movie that's from?
No, I'm trying to make a point.
Sandlot.
I said
You are so much older than me, aren't you? You're so much older than me. Such an old man. Sandlot. It's from Sandlot. Forever. Forever. All right. This was fun. I like it. I'm excited to see what else we can do.
Have a great Friday. Chat with you soon.
Thanks for
Bye.
everyone that came in. Appreciate it.